The TV license is sort of a running joke for Americans who engage in online argument with their cousins in the British Isles, and is often used as an example of the differences in social attitudes and personal freedoms between the two regions. An American citizen has the privilege, nay, the right to possess a firearm, but the British citizen needs a license to own a TV. The jokes write themselves, and the Americans laugh in semi-automatic gunfire. But all jokes aside, genuinely, why do British people need a license to own a TV? Can they get in trouble for owning a TV without a license? How does the government know if they do? Why do Brits tolerate any of this? These questions all have very interesting, and if you're American, hilarious answers. So let's dive in. Scottish inventor John Logie Baird is often credited with creating the world's first mechanical television. He demonstrated it to scientists of the Royal Institute in 1926, which is widely regarded as the world's first public television demonstration. It was a piece of shit. The electronic television was invented shortly after, but well, just look at it. It wasn't until after World War II that the technology became mainstream. This is why you may be surprised to hear that the idea of the TV license predates even Baird's primitive invention. The Wireless Telegraphy Act of 1904 regulated the transmission of messages using radio waves, which was instrumental in maritime communication and becoming increasingly important in military operations. At this time, the General Post Office was seen as the administrative and regulatory office for this stuff because, just like the post, it required delivery from a sender to a receiver. Under the Wireless Telegraphy Act, the General Post Office implemented a receiving license for radio transmissions. If you wanted to receive radio transmissions, you had to pay for an annual license. Seeing as this technology was still somewhat experimental, it didn't see a lot of use by the public, and in 1906, 2 years after the license was introduced, only 68 receiving licenses were issued. By 1914, this had risen to several thousand. This was unfortunate for those people because that year the General Post Office announced the licenses were being suspended due to the First World War. The General Post Office informed the license holders that they were required to dismantle their receiving equipment. By the 1920s, radio technology was seeing rapid growth. This was the point where the General Post Office realised they probably weren't going to be the masters of long-range communication forever, and so they pushed for the establishment of the British Broadcasting Company in 1922, now known as the British Broadcasting Corporation, or the BBC. Initially, the BBC consisted of radio manufacturers who would produce radio programs for users of their products, the broadcasts being funded by the sale of their radio receiving sets. However, in 1923, a license was reintroduced to fund the broadcasts, which cost 10 shillings a year. Thusly, the license had shifted from being a regulatory measure to a vehicle for funding. In 1927, the BBC went from a private company to a public service corporation, which it remains to this day. The government doesn't directly control it, but it is subject to government regulation as a public service. So, the BBC was creating broadcast programming for the general public, and the General Post Office was funding it with the license fees. When television started taking off, they did broadcasts on that too, starting in 1936. Although this was stopped during World War II to focus on radio. After World War II, TV saw huge growth worldwide, and even though the BBC only had one black and white channel, they decided people should pay a license fee for that too. The first TV license was introduced in 1946 and cost £2 a year. Thankfully, this covered radio too, so you only had to pay the TV license to legally receive both. With this, the BBC was able to expand their programming. Eventually, colour TV came around, and in 1968, the colour TV license was introduced, meaning you had to pay more for the colours. Believe it or not, the license still works like this. You can get a monochrome TV license for about £50 and a colour one for about £150. Apparently, there are over 4,000 people in the UK still paying exclusively for the monochrome license. In 1971, radio was finally license-free, meaning only your TV required a license. In 1991, the responsibility of administering the TV license was passed from the General Post Office to the BBC, meaning the BBC is totally responsible for issuing licenses and enforcing license fee payment. And this is where we are today. Through the license fees and government funding, the BBC has expanded greatly with multiple radio stations and TV channels across the world. If you're in the United Kingdom, these channels are free, but you have to pay for a TV license if you watch or record television transmissions at the same time they are being broadcast. Even if you're not watching anything from the BBC, it's the law. Even if you don't have a TV and you watch via internet streaming, you need a TV license. So what if you don't have a TV license? Well, it's not required to buy a TV, so it's fairly easy to just break the law and watch without a license. But the BBC takes this fairly seriously. They have a database of every household in possession of a TV license, meaning they know if you don't have one. If you're suspected of watching TV without a license, they may first initiate contact via unsolicited telephone calls or letters, which you have no means of opting out of, since they are not considered advertising or marketing material. A TV licensing agent, sometimes known as a TV license inspector, might make an unannounced visit to your house. This has happened to me because Ireland similarly requires a TV license to fund our public broadcaster, RTE. After a brief confrontation, he was forced to apologise because his system was out of date, and he went on his merry way to annoy someone else. A TV licensing agent may ask for permission to enter your home and inspect any TV receiving equipment. Although you are under no obligation to grant this permission, they may apply to a magistrate for a search warrant. They do try to avoid going down this route by making use of detection equipment. Yes, they do use devices to detect TVs. They even have TV detector vans that they drive around in, making note of households they detected a TV in, but do not appear on their license database. These vans are shrouded in secrecy, as the BBC never reveal to the public how many of these vans they own or how they operate, in an effort to prevent evasion. This has led to widespread speculation over if they even really exist, with some believing they're merely a myth or a hoax to scare people away from evading the license fee. And while they are real, their effectiveness is debated, and the BBC has probably exaggerated their capabilities.
Yes, there's a TV set on number 5. It's in the front room. And they're watching Columbo.
If you don't have a TV license, it won't take us long to find you.
TV license evasion is a prosecutable offence with a maximum fine of £1,000. It's not technically punishable by imprisonment, but convicted offenders could be imprisoned on non-payment of the fine, although this is rare. So why do the Brits allow the existence of the TV licence? Well, a majority aren't actually happy with the system for numerous reasons. The BBC no longer gets all their funds from the public, they sell advertisements and license their content. They've even copyright claimed one of my videos for using a few seconds of footage from one of their shows, the bastards. So why are they still making the public pay for them? Well, in 2017, the BBC had a total income of just over £5 billion. 3.83 billion of this, or 75%, came from TV licence fees, so they're not overly eager to get rid of it, considering it's their primary source of funding. People are also turned off by how Orwellian enforcement of the TV licence fee seems. The TV licence inspectors, the detector vans, the adverts. Yes, the BBC produces adverts designed to scare you into paying your licence fee, the production of these adverts obviously being funded by the licence fees. The tone of these ads often leaves a bad taste in people's mouths.
Your town, your street, your home. It's all in our database. New technology means it's easy to pay your TV license and impossible to hide if you don't. It's all in the database.
Another bone of contention, or rather the many bones, the entire skeleton of contention one might say, is the many scandals the BBC has been involved in. The biggest example probably being the Jimmy Savile controversy. Savile was a prominent host in BBC programming. After his death in 2011, it was revealed that Savile was one of, if not the most prolific sex offender in Britain's history. These horrific crimes, many of which were alleged to have occurred during his decades-long career at the BBC led to accusations that the corporation was either complicit or grossly negligent, which allowed their presenter to never have to face justice. After his death, hundreds of allegations came to light, leading many to seriously distrust the BBC and wonder who their license fees were going to. There are many other reasons people aren't happy with the license fee, but I'll leave you with one more bizarrely interesting one. Enforcement of the license fee has come under fire for gender discrimination. In 2017, 72% of prosecutions for TV license evasion were against women. TV license evasion is the most common offence for which women are prosecuted in the UK. Women are 10 times more likely to be convicted of this than men. This extreme disparity has led to many questioning if this is due to social factors or discriminatory enforcement practices. There are many other countries that issue TV licenses, but there are even more that previously issued them and have since abolished the practice. Will the UK ever join this list? This is an ongoing debate. Many of its citizens would hope so, but there are still many who view the BBC as an overall positive force and don't mind paying the license fee to ensure it can continue to produce programming at the scale and quality the broadcaster is renowned for, while remaining independent from commercial pressures. And that's all the time I'm willing to dedicate to talking about TV licensing in the UK, so I hope you enjoyed it. If you're American, maybe this has provided you with more ammunition to make fun of the TV license, which is good because Americans can never have enough ammunition. If you did enjoy the video, I have literally hundreds more, and if you'd like to see more in the future, then subscribe because I release a new one every Friday. I hope to see you next Friday, unless you're a TV license inspector, in which case, don't come back. And until then, stay safe.
Picked up a spout. Still a good mile and a half or so ahead of us here. What we're seeing is a visible
Hold on a minute.
Good evening, sir. TV licensing.
I haven't got a television. Oh, that's for dinner. Chicken.
Nice hat.
A TV licence works out at less than £9 a month. Is it really worth trying to avoid it?